This is Thriving in Business and Life. I'm Christopher Harding.
And I'm Will Wilkinson. Welcome back to the show. We've got a tremendous guest today, Steve Bhaerman, a.k.a. Swami Beyondananda. Welcome, Steve, Swami.
Well, thank you. We have two. You got a 2-for-1, and through the magic of radio, I can change costume.
That's great.
Somehow I feel like I'm getting a really good deal.
I have to tell you, I've won points with my wife and her entire family because of this particular episode today, because they've been huge fans of your Swami character for years and years.
Well, thank you. The Swami will make an appearance if you ask him. If you have an answerable question for the Swami, he'll have a questionable answer for you.
And I'm sure that a lot of our listeners are familiar with your work, but just to introduce you a little further, the Swami is a character that you adopted. You've been using him as an alter ego for about 30 years and using the technique of comedy to shed light on current affairs. You do a lot of political satire. And I know for years I've enjoyed your incredible wordsmithing and the way you can twist words around. And I would really love the Swami to make an appearance during the show and enjoy a little bit of that genius.
Fabulous. Well, he's right here. He's very patient. He transcended his ego. So he has no skin in the game. He just has a turban. And being turban powered, his receiver is ready to receive. So whatever you want to know, I can answer some of it. And what I can't answer, I'll pass along to Swami.
We'll ask you a question right off the bat that maybe the two of you will have interesting answers to talk about. But one of the things, as you know, Steve, that we explore, and Swami, is creating a thriving culture, both in business and around us personally. And I know you've talked a lot in some of your different appearances and so on about fun. And so from your standpoint, what role does fun have to do with people's ability to really show up and be engaged and be at their best?
Well, hold on. Swami has something to say. Hold on. Well, I'll tell you something about fun. Fun is fundamental. And as a fundamentalist, accent on the fun as opposed to the mental, I think that life is a joke. And God is laughing with us, not at us. Because the Creator is watching the comedy channel. We are what's on. So, and we're given free choice. We have free choice in life. We get to decide whether or not we laugh. So if you want to be miserable, go right ahead, whatever makes you happy. I will tell you this. Levity will help you defy gravity. And while you might imagine that there's some grave things going on the planet, if you allow yourself to rise to the position of levity, you can begin to see things from a higher perspective and a deeper perspective. And so when you are having a good time, happiness is an inside job, right?
Right.
In this country, we are told that we have to pursue happiness. And you see people so fervently pursuing happiness, they look like they outran it. They ran right past it. And so, you're supposed to actually get these things that are supposed to make you happy, and you become envious of other people who might be happier than you are. And of course, Sigmund Freud would have called this happiness envy. Somebody's happiness might be bigger than mine. So it is an inside job. Because so many people ask me, I meet people everywhere when I'm performing and doing shows, and they say, Swami, how can I uplift humankind? I look at their faces and they're all down in their mouth and frowning. I say, well, first of all, you must begin by uplifting the corners of your own mouth first. It is called a levitational book. You see, they're pulled up in the corners of your mouth. Now, when you do that, funny thing happens. Your body actually thinks that you're happy. When you turn your face into a smile, when you turn the corners of your mouth into a smile, even if you don't want to, even if you're not feeling like it, when you do that, your body begins to think that you're happy and secretes happiness hormone.
Yeah.
So when you talk about fun, this is a way to actually accelerate progress on everything, because when you are having fun doing something, even something serious, you temporarily forget that it's serious. And so I think that we need to actually take humor more seriously and seriousness more humorously.
Well, you're reminding me about one of the causes that you support, which is the right to laugh.
I have created the Right to Laugh Party. I called it one big party. Everyone is invited, all for fun, fun for all. And what we do is we bring red tribe and blue tribe together to speak in sacred circles and talk until they're purple in the face.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why, because only by standing as one purple people will the peeps outnumber the perps.
Well, thank you so much for bringing levity into such a heavy field as you do. And politics has gotten increasingly heavy, and a lot of our friends are not keeping their sense of humor. So thank you for helping us remember how important that is.
Well, I'll tell you something. I think we have to have compassion for everyone. You'll never hear me say a bad word about Donald Trump, and I'll tell you why. Because behind every soulless heel, there is an unhealed soul.
Yeah. Beautifully said.
Not only do we have to heal souls, we have to re-soul heals. I have a new program for doing exactly that. I called it From A-Hole to B-Hole. And I have compassion for the man because I call him Trumpy Dumpty. Trumpy Dumpty, he's had kind of a tough summer, so let us all together wish him a great fall.
You're talking about how smiling, just the act of smiling, really changes how our whole body chemistry works and changes our brain function. And in our book and the work we do, a lot of what we talk about is helping people realize that they're storytellers. We're all storytellers. We're making up stories about our reality all the time. And if we decide to make up a different story about what's going on and our role in it, we can create an entirely different situation. What's your experience with that?
Well, I think we need a new situation because what we have right now is a situation. We have a situation. And of course, I call it make-believe reality because we make what we believe. And what people believe is unbelievable. So part of what we have to do with our story, one of the reasons why we are in the mess that we're in, is that we don't really have a coherent feeling story that we can all gather around. So that is, it is that the biblical saying, where there is no vision, the people perish.
Yes.
And so instead of only fighting against what we don't want, we need to gather around what we do want. So if you don't like current news, turn off your TV and tell a vision instead.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So tell your vision. I tell the vision, you tell the vision to me. Right?
Well, it's something you're so skilled at, Steve, is taking these unusual words and word combinations in the English language and exposing meaning that is not only humorous, but also is quite insightful. And in the humor, we also get a lot of wisdom.
Well, it is insightful. I have incited many people. No, this is really wonderful. We are all so fortunate to have grown up with the English language because English is a combination of so many different languages. We have the Latin influence, the Germanic influence, the Greek influence, and all of these other languages, so that we have all kinds of homonyms. We have words that sound similar, but are coming from different traditions and have completely different meanings. Many years ago, we did a show at Yogaville in Virginia for Swami Beyondananda. And he being descended from a family of Tamil poets, had the appreciation of how many awesome layers there are in language. That there are many, many different layers, and as you begin to play with the words, and play is the key, that's the other aspect of fun, when you begin to play with the words, these new meanings, they emerge, and they add different layers. Sigmund Freud when he did his dream interpretation, he would actually he thought of tongues as kind of the language of the subconscious, because the mind is making free, the unconscious mind, subconscious mind, is making free associations with different sounds, and often these free associations could reveal information. Hence the idea of a Freudian slip.
Yeah, right. Well, just back to your mention of the Yogaville performance. I'm curious, how did it go over with the Swami?
Well, you can imagine, this is in 1989, so quite a few years ago, and you can imagine how intimidating it was for me, a phony Swami, to be doing a presentation for a real Swami. It was kind of a little bit scary. So our show was on Saturday night, and on Friday night we went to his satsang, to do the Swami, and he said, if you want to achieve enlightenment, you must desire nothing. Well, it so happened that I had come out with the nothing box. Because earlier, a box of absolutely nothing, whatever your problem is, nothing to solve it. And so the next night after the show, and he laughed at the show, he loved the show. The next night, Trudy and I, my wife Trudy and I, presented him with a box of absolutely nothing.
Oh, great.
Can become enlightened. And he was so thrilled that when he had his 80th birthday party and invited all these Hollywood celebrities to come to Yogaville, he invited me to come there to do the routine about him.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm so glad to hear that he had a sense of humor, because one of the complaints about spirituality is that it can become pretentious and pretty darn serious.
Usually the head guys, like the Maharishi was known as the giggling guru, the Dalai Lama. I love the Dalai Lama because he is so guileless and playful. I heard him interviewed years ago by a very serious American reporter about Buddhism, and for every other question, Dalai Lama's answer was, I don't know.
That's great.
That's high self-esteem as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, truly,
No
truly.
kidding.
Yeah, that's the freedom to not know is a beautiful thing. Well, we deal a lot with large companies who are engaged in what for them are very serious pursuits. Do you ever interact, I'm sure you do, speaking to companies and employees and so on, and what is it that you would tell them as they're engaged in these serious pursuits?
Well, the thing is that all of the studies show that when people take a break, when they're enjoying themselves, it's almost a cliche, but if you look at the top performing companies, lo and behold, the work culture of these companies encompasses playfulness, creativity, giving people a break. I mean, go to Google. There's a perfect example of how the human side of everything is in the workplace, so that people can easily make the transition from work that feels like play to actually production. Because a lot of our most productive creative time, if you can spend your time coming up with something that is so unique and so powerful and so creative that it actually saves lots and lots and lots of time.
Yeah.
It's worth having the time where it looks like you're doing nothing.
Right.
And you actually produce something. So I think that where people are feeling intimidated, it's not a good place. I would have to say that I've probably done thousands of shows, and there've only been a couple that didn't work. And one of them that didn't work, I was speaking to a state agency in Colorado. And this was a state agency that dealt with foster homes and children and so on. And nobody laughed.
Oh,
And
no.
I realized why, I found out later, why they didn't laugh was because everybody was in the room. They had the bosses, they had the underlings, and nobody wanted to show the vulnerability. So everybody kept it in, and it was a miserable time was had by all.
Well, boy, that's telling about a culture. I know one of the things we've we really try to stress when we're working with leaders is, are they willing and are they aware of whether they're creating a safe culture where people can really be alive and be responsive and fully, and vulnerable and engaged, and it's so easy for that not to happen if the leaders aren't really stimulating that kind of environment.
Well, we've done lots and lots of programs for all kinds of venues, from churches to theaters to businesses, and when you walk into an environment, you can tell when there's fear in the room. I mean, often, it's understandable why there would be financial fear. I could relate to that. But when there's that fear, it constricts everything. Mm-hmm. It makes everybody more self-conscious, and sometimes the tension needs to be broken. There's a wonderful story. Jerry Della Femina, who had one of the most successful ad agencies in the 1960s, tells about one of their first early clients. I believe it was Toshiba. It was a Japanese company. It was either them or Mazda or Toyota, and it was this is in the early 1960s, and in those days people didn't buy things that were made in Japan. It was really only like 15 years after the end of World War II.
Right.
And in those days, made in Japan was kind of like made in China now. It was a mark of lack of quality.
Right.
And so they were really trying to come up with an ad campaign, and everything was really, really, really stuck, and tremendous tension in the room. And finally, one of the staff said rather timidly, he said, "I have an idea. How about from those wonderful people who brought us Pearl Harbor?"
Oh my!
And they had such a good laugh. Of course, they didn't use that as their ad campaign, but just to break the tension in the room and put everybody on the same side.
Yeah. So that's a wonderful role that humor can play.
Yeah, and of course, we've all seen humor that doesn't work, and humor that doesn't work. Well, first of all, if it's humor about somebody, you don't have their permission. If you're doing a roast at the Friars Club, then you have permission. In fact, it's part of the program to insult people, and they take it as part of the quote-unquote good-natured teasing. Mm-hmm. When you make somebody at the workplace a target because you think they're funny, and they don't, then all of a sudden you've created a situation where you have people ganging up, and instead of people feeling more liberated, they're feeling less liberated because they might get attacked next.
Yeah.
I remember my wife did stand up for a little while until she realized that she was better at improv, but
somebody told her to sit down.
Yeah, but she said that she remembered these rules of comedy, that you could make fun, so to speak, of somebody up the socioeconomic ladder, but not down the socioeconomic ladder. That was kind of the rules of engagement, so to speak. Does that still hold true? Is that kind of what you're talking about a little bit?
Well, until Donald Trump it did. I think that what's great about that is that comedy has always been the champion of the underdog. If you look at the old Charlie Chaplin movies, he's the underdog, and you root for him. If you look at Groucho, Margaret Dumont is huge, but who was a very, very proper woman. She represented the haughty and the high and mighty, and comedy is a great level of comedy because, the healing power of laughter. The word healing means to restore wholeness. So humor often heals by restoring the whole picture.
Yeah.
So if something is already out of balance, then humor is a way to rebalance it in an inferential way rather than a direct way.
Yeah, well, in these days, political correctness is kind of expanded to the point where, and social media captures everything. So a lot of people are really on edge. The slightest comment can be taken out of context and used against them. People's lives, their careers can be ruined by one kind of thoughtless, casual comment made that they may think is funny, but it's inappropriate in that situation. Does this make us get a little bit afraid of using humor?
Well, it's interesting factoid is that Chris Rock and Jerry Seinfeld will not go to perform on college campuses.
Really?
There is nothing over the line about Jerry Seinfeld's humor. He's always very influential. Mm-hmm. And so what's happened, if I'd stayed in academia, I would probably be a right-wing jerk at this point because of the insanity of this political correctness.
Yeah.
It brings out the 9-year-old boy in everybody.
There's you were talking earlier about that. Excuse me. You were talking earlier about how healing really restores wholeness, and that how humor is healing because it brings in these additional points of view or wholeness. One of the things we talk about is trying to help people really assess what's going on in a situation. And you used a great example with the ad agency situation. How else could humor be used to sometimes help people see what's actually going on, maybe even in a business scenario, so that they can lighten it up a little bit and allow the creativity to flow? Because when we get over-focused, it seems like we become myopic and become blind sometimes to what the real answer is.
One of the life-changing experiences that I've had, and this is a little bit extreme, but my history, I got laid off from a job teaching at a university, and the only job I could get was doing tree work for the city of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And so while I was there, a friend and I started an anonymous humorous newspaper. And we essentially created an ongoing interactive situations comedy where all of the people at the workplace were our subject. They were the heroes. They were the stars of the show. And sometimes we had what we reported was exactly how it happened. Sometimes it was a little bit embellished, and sometimes it was totally made up. We figured they would figure out which was right. One of the great things that we noticed about it was that humor was a way for us to speak about things that could not be talked about. Mm-hmm. And because it's inferential, it's indirect. Mm-hmm. It's like talking in quotes. Mm-hmm. On the first issue, there's a big issue about the high ranger, which was the device that allowed somebody to go in and blow and trim a tree. You'd be in this little open cab booth, and it would, you go up to the top of the tree. And so there was a big controversy in Michigan in the wintertime because the high ranger did not operate properly when it was under a certain temperature. It felt very dangerous. Right. So the first cartoon that we did for this new newspaper, you see a snowman with a lunchbox, says Frosty on it, and one of the foremen is saying, "Oh, our new high ranger operator is here."
Good. Good.
Completely inferential, everybody got the joke, and it was something that, you weren't really supposed to talk about how dangerous it was, but that was a peripheral, indirect way of doing it. Yeah. So I don't know that I would recommend humorous newspaper for every workplace, because you have to have the right tone and feel for being able to do that. So you walk the line. There's an edge. There's an edge. And, there are those who say, like my good friend Alicia Batner, who's a working comedian, that the comedy club is sacred space. It's sacred space. In that anything goes. An example of that.
That's the nature of the space, right?
That's the nature. So it's an example. So at this Native American festival in Santa Fe a number of years ago, there was this very elegant older woman, very proper, very elegant, dressed in beautiful buckskin and fringes and turquoise. And in the streets are the Native American clowns, the Hayote, and they are smashing watermelons in the street. And at one point, one of the clowns comes up to her with this dripping watermelon and he puts it all over her beautiful outfit. And there is this silence, and then she burst out laughing. Because in that culture, the Joker is wild. The clowns have the final say. Because in a certain regard, it's a commentary, sort of like the Tibetan sand paintings, where at the end they just kind of go like that, and they just blow it away. It's kind of about the impermanence of all the things that we take so seriously. So the clowns are a reminder that those are things that we may take them seriously, but in the cosmic comic scheme of things, they're not serious.
Well, one final question for the Swami, if we could.
We'll get him back, yes.
Yeah, so a lot of what we talk about is trying to help people find this magical thing called their values. And sometimes it gets real heady for people, so we try to just say, hey, your values are what light you up. They're what you're passionate about. They're what makes you want to get up in the morning and do something. What does the Swami have to say about values and passion and what lights us up?
Well, values are valuable. I would say very valuable, because really you have to be motivated to want to get up in the morning. And also, it's really, really important that you have a purpose to what you do. The purpose is the vector that moves you forward toward the goal. And the goal is out there. You may never reach that goal, but it keeps your eye on the prize. So even when you have a surprise, your eye is still on the prize, and you can actually recalibrate and steer your way. One of the problems that people have is that we are still used to working by somebody else's agenda, by what somebody else thinks is important, that we don't really recognize who we would be if we were not doing that.
Yeah.
Who would I be if I were not working for that company and doing what they do with it? What would I be doing if I was doing what I do? And so that is, I think that this is really amazing, because I think that each of us has been given a special gift just for entering. And we are each totally unique, just like everybody else.
Well, thank you so much, Swami and Steve. We're reaching the end of our program, and we feel like we've got two for the price of one this time.
Absolutely.
Well, given how much I've been paid, I think you got quite a deal.
Yes, we did. And where can people reach you? And what website should they go to learn more about you or to enjoy you and the Swami more?
Go to wakeuplaughing.com, Wake Up Laughing. You can find me on Facebook, Google Swami Beyondananda on Facebook. We post a lot of things on there. We're going to start doing Facebook live chats with the Swami.
Good.
And we're going to have that be up and running in the next several weeks. And so that's really the best way. And we do travel a lot. We are going to be in Florida in the fall. We're going to be on West Coast primarily. And if you want to book the Swami, Swami's been booked, but he's never been convicted.
Well, good. So thanks so much, Steve.
Thank you so much. It was a very quick half hour, and you guys are doing great.
Thank you so much. We have been listening and talking with Steve Bhaerman, a.k.a. Swami Beyondananda today. My name's Will Wilkinson. This is Thriving in Business and Life.
And I'm Christopher Harding, and you can reach us at thrivinginbusinessandlife@gmail.com. Until next week, have fun.
See you next week.